It's that time of year. Yes, indeed. The 150th Kentucky Oaks and Derby. Run for the roses. But for many, it's been roses delayed and roses denied. This is an exciting episode for me because I'm coming to you in our We Are FANican way. As most of you who know follow us on Seltzer Sports and you follow me, Lisa Hampton _ on Twitter, you are aware that part of the Seltzer Sports platform is the unique brand of women sports fans, We Are FANicans. And that's FANICANS. We also have our website as well. And what that offers women is an opportunity for us to create a community of women sports fans, not simply women who date or are married or relationships with professional or student athletes, not women who simply are soccer moms, but rather a collective, if you will, who either play, do, go. That's our hashtag. Play sports, participate with individuals who play sports, do sporting activities, and or go to and attend sporting events. So one of our events has been the NBA All-Star Weekend. We had people at PGA. We also had people at the Super Bowl. And one of our upcoming events, as you all know, is tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, Kentucky Derby. And so here we are, Louisville, Kentucky. So many people hear about women in sports, and we tend to think that as women in sports, that we are not afforded the opportunity to enjoy sporting events and activities. There are many who have asked, why haven't you opened or established an Instagram or Facebook account? It is because as of date, and over the last, God only knows how long, the women who participate as FANicans don't want what we do when we travel to be readily made available to the public at large. We are not only fans. That is a totally separate and distinct operation. We are FANicans, a unique brand of women sports fans. And so our collective likes to enjoy privacy with our events. And we don't want to advertise every single thing that we do. It's a FANican club. And so we will be enjoying the Kentucky Oaks and Derby. And so I wanted to present to you some things about the Kentucky Derby, some things to do in Louisville if you, in fact, will be here, and give you some background history as it pertains to the Derby. Most of us are familiar with the Kentucky Derby currently, particularly within the last 15, 20 years, wherein we see a lot of jockeys and the like who represent those coming from Latin America and South America. But there's been a history of women and Blacks who have been jockeys with the Kentucky Derby. In fact, 12 of the 15 jockeys in the first Kentucky Derby were Black. And of 28 runs, they won 15 of them. Yes, 15 out of the 28. Some of the names that we need to think about when we embrace the history of Kentucky Derby as it relates to women and Blacks is recognizing the role of people like Oliver Lewis as far back as 1875, and Ansel Williamson, who was born into slavery but became a jockey as well. Isaac Burns Murphy was the son of a slave who participated 1884 to 1891 timeframe. And then you had the first Black woman to serve as a trainer for the Kentucky Derby as well. So there's a strong history of the involvement, if you will. And that woman was Diane Crump. And she was one of the first to ride. This is a white woman now. Diane Crump, who was the first to ride in 2011. She rode again 2013 and 2014. Rosie, and forgive me, let me spell out your name. I think it's Napranik, but it's NapraVnik, another white female. And there had been about 6 women to ride in the Kentucky Derby. They raced in 9 of them. Jessica Whitley was the curator of one of the museums who tried to put together information about the role of women in this space. Kathy Cushion-Sue, if I'm spelling your name correctly, sweetheart, or pronouncing it. But there's just this long history of women. I wanted to put that out there because many of us tend to think of the Kentucky Derby for champagne bottles, fancy hats, interesting attire, food, fun, fine dining, and entertainment. And while all of those are factors of the Kentucky Derby, there is a dark history as it pertains to disparity and discrimination against women and Blacks in this space. While here, there are several places that we, in fact, can attend and or embrace. And I want to explain some of that. Let me remind you, Sylvia Bishop is the first African-American woman licensed in the United States to train horses who actually ran in the Kentucky Derby. I want to make sure I get her name. Okay, so there are so many museums. I've gathered a lot, traveled, and enjoyed. Kentucky Derby Museum is in Louisville, and you will get a history there of some of the Black and women who have participated. You'll also get, through their curator, 150 years of history of the Kentucky Derby. There is also the National Museum of the Hall of Fame of Horse Racing. Check that out while you're here as well. And then there are organizations like the Legacy Equine Academy, run by Ron Mack, who has provided programs and services for urban and rural youth, particularly those from lower or underserved communities, to be able to learn about what it takes to be an equestrian and a horse jockey. Equally, there's the Ed Brown Society jockey. He was a jockey, an African American. These are critically important when you embrace a multi-billion-dollar industry like horse racing. And I didn't think it was fair to do a show that glamorizes the Kentucky Derby or makes it appear that we're throwing in your faces, we are here, right? Didn't want to do that. So I thought it was important for us to share the dark side, share the areas of improvement, but also be able to show where the city of Louisville, the state of Kentucky, this bluegrass state, is trying to do things in an effort to equalize the playing field, if you will, and to address the inequities and inequality in this space for racing. There are many, as I stated at the top of the show, that embrace the run for the roses, but there has been a time, and there continues to be, a roses delayed and roses denied. When you realize that women were not able to receive licensure to race horses in the United States until 1968, that's delayed. It had been denied, but it was also delayed. When you look at the history of Black jockeys and the disappearance and the forgotten of the jockeys who once dominated this sport, not only simply through the means of training, not only did these Black men train, but they were also involved in breeding horses as well. And that's a conversation that many people don't want to have. They don't want to discuss the completeness, if you will, of what Black men did in this space. And it is interesting to see where we are. It is interesting to come to an understanding and a knowledge of what Jim Crow and segregation did to the sport of horse racing. The Black heritage in racing included, but was not limited to, many prominent Black families throughout the United States. Some of them as far as the state of Florida, upstate New York, California, Texas, and even the Carolinas and Kentucky and Tennessee were involved in breeding and training horses who were actually winners in the Kentucky Derby. But this wasn't simply limited to inequity and disparity in the 1800s or early 1900s. No. In fact, in 1962, there was a Black man by the name of Harbut, Harbut. Now, I've heard it pronounced Herbert and Harbut. They are here. Y'all know him, is Greg Harbut, the owner and of Necker Island. That's the name of his horse. He is third, fourth generation an African-American male who in 2020, y'all remember that year, during the protestation of then the 146th Kentucky Derby, because of the death of George Floyd and the shooting death of Breonna Taylor, it brought a lot of attention to Louisville, Kentucky. There were protestations and demonstrations, if you will, and individuals who led in an effort to bring about awareness to inequity and disparity. But it brought awareness and attention to what was happening within the ranks of the Kentucky Derby. So Greg Hubbart's family became the focal point, if you will, because he was the only Black-owned and operated establishment for someone who had a horse running in the Kentucky Derby. His horse was Necker Island. As I stated, he represents a long history of horseback riders. His great-great-grandfather, Will, had a horse in the race, along with his father, Tom, and his grandfather. Their horses included, but were not limited to, Touch Bar. Touch Bar was father, his biological father, that is, was a thoroughbreed, and Touch Bar was trained by Tom Hubbard. And in training that horse in 1962, and also being a breeder and a grooms, he was denied access to watch his horse run in the Kentucky Derby in 1962 because he was Black. Not the horse. Mr. Hubbard was Black. So because Tom was a Black man in 1962, he could present his horse to race, but he was not allowed in the race. It also includes Dark Star, who did win the Kentucky Derby in 1953, and then Man of War, who was the greatest race horse in the history of Kentucky Derby racing. Black horse, not the color of the horse per se, but the people who owned, bred, fed, trained, and groomed the horse and their jockey. A lot of people are not cognizant and aware of the role of Blacks and what they did and can continue to do when afforded the opportunity and when equity and equality is forthwith. And it was not. And so Blacks were forced post-Reconstruction through the Jim Crow South, through the civil rights, and even as we speak today, to jobs outside of racing horses, outside of being jockeys. They were forced to take on mediocre jobs, to work inside the stalls, the barns, to clean up the horses' manure. So one of the things I've been asking since I've been present is the following. In light of the new Black wealth, professional basketball players, football players, baseball players, tennis, golf, those in corporate America, those in pharmaceutical, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, those who have benefited from software developments. What are you doing about recreating Black wealth through horses? Because the Hubbards family, the great-great-grandfather, was one of 11 children, 8 of whom went on to college and attained college degrees. And that is what Black wealth did then. I don't want to say connoisseurs of sorts, but they were in many aspects. So we can no longer simply live in excuses, denial, and justification and state unto ourselves that we don't have the opportunity per se to engage in horse racing, because we do. But is there an interest? And if so, where does that lie? And so we look to programs that have been provided by the likes of Ron Mack, by the likes of the Ed Brown Society, wherein these are individuals who offer the next generation, our Gen Zs, an opportunity to learn about the equestrian industry, horse racing industry, if you will, and to have a greater understanding of equine. I myself love horses. They don't just serve as a guardian of sorts. I love horses and I ride. And I have been fortunate in that aspect. That being said, I do recognize that there are many instances where I do not see a lot of women like me in this space, such that when I am participating, I'm often asked how, who, what, when, where, and why. I recognize that many of us have taken a path and a journey that differs greatly from that of our ancestors. So what might that look like? I remember once hearing my grandparents, great-grandparents, directly or indirectly say the importance of never owing anyone anything. There was a time when many of us may have been land rich, but pocket poor. Land rich, but pocket poor. And so throughout the United States, with particular emphasis on the 7 southern states and part of the Midwest, many of us did in fact own land. We were land rich, but pocket poor. But even wherein we would be perceived as pocket poor, our ancestors knew exactly what not to do, and getting in debt was one of them. For many of us, when we look at the millions of dollars some of us have invested in our homesteads to accommodate us and a few children, if you will, a lot of that money is wasted in terms of what we may otherwise be able to do in a space like horse racing, where some of us have land and could in fact create what one may call as a horse farm. We haven't done it. There is a growing popularity in polo sports, such that even within HBCUs, and I'm on, I don't want to say the front line, but I have in fact looked into, as an investor, creating an environment for Black young women and girls to be able to participate in the sport of polo. But then where do we go with that? Wherein there aren't many others. Colleges and universities like Morehouse College now has available a polo sport event that takes place in the state of Georgia. And so what we are attempting to do individually and as a collective, those of us who are in this space, is try to utilize the little resources that we do have to bring about some sense of change. What does that look like as it pertains to horse racing in Kentucky? So one of the things I would love for you to do, if you have the opportunity to be here, either this week and or in the future, is to stop by some of the following museums. Jimmy Winkfield won the Kentucky Derby 1901-02, an African-American jockey. I throw that out there before I begin this statement about where to go and what to do, because we tend to think that Black people can't do it. We can. We have somehow been relegated to a few sports, and that's where we stayed. When you think about NASCAR and you think about horseback riding, we are able to do this. We can, in fact, do it. There will be some obstacles and barriers when we do it, but that's all we know is how to do it. And we do it, and we do it well, and we can. So while you are here, I want you to go and visit the International Museum of the Horse. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn about Black horsemen and the multi-billion-dollar industry that we call horseback racing. Also go to the Black Heritage in Racing and learn about people such as Will Gray, Tom Hobart. Where will you get that information from? You'll find the quote-unquote Black Heritage in Racing at the National Museum of Racing, the Hall of Famer division or section, if you will. The Kentucky Derby Museum in Louisville offers a great opportunity to get information and to learn. Okay, try to do that if you can. And stop by the Legacy Equine Academy and research and or stop by Ed Brown Society for the jockeys, okay? Now, I find this next portion to be fun. This is the reason why we come to the Kentucky Derby. Indeed, I saved this particular last 3 segments about where to go and what to do as it pertains strictly to the Kentucky Derby for this section. We think of champagne flutes, fancy hats, expensive handbags, and we forget that there is a world outside of Churchill Downs wherein there is poverty, sickness, disease, death, and crime. What can you do to assist and help the local economy while you're there. So let me start first with this. There are Black-owned and operated or women-owned and operated businesses that are not directly connected to Churchill Downs, but they are in Louisville. They are accessible. And wherein you have the opportunity to get there, please do so. In no particular order. You have the Black Jockey's Lounge, Dasha's Barbers, Lucretia's Kitchen, The Scoop Waffle and Sweet House, Black Coffee with a K, Louisville Cream, Soulful Choices, Back Deck Barbecue, Eden and Kizzy, and Shirley Moe's Cafe. They're worth repeating. Shirley Moe's Cafe, Dasha Barbers, Lucretia's Kitchen, Black Jockey's Lounge, The Scoop Waffle and Sweet Shop, Black Coffee, Louisville Cream, Soulful Choices, Back Deck Barbecue, Eden and Kizzy. Try, if at all possible, to patronize these establishments while you are there. Okay? There's also an opportunity for you to see them train these beautiful horses, and there's no expense for you to do that. From the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Keeneland Training has the horses readily available for you to witness how they're trained. Okay? Keeneland Training from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Then there is the Heart of the Turf. The Heart of the Turf. Try to visit that in Louisville if you have the opportunity to do so. And wherein transportation may be an issue, if even you're from the surrounding area in Louisville or you're coming into town, consider they have transportation on the TARC, the TARC, the TARC. You can, and that is Route 4, 6, and 29. Routes 4, 6, and 29. You also have accessibility if you're on Whiskey Row or 4th Street. You can also have access to Old Louisville and or the Highland District. Even being in that vicinity, if you cannot actually get to the races, is a wonderful opportunity for you, trust me. There are times when you may not have to spend money to enjoy money that other people have spent. There are times where you may not have to spend money to enjoy opportunities where people have spent money, okay? And being in that vicinity is a great opportunity. If you own a bike or a moped and you can ride down, try to get as close as Shelby Park, because Shelby Park will give you an opportunity to park your bike there and just kind of walk around, okay? Because you have the Kentucky Derby Festival, beautiful activities that transpire. People forget that there are housing and individuals that reside within that vicinity, okay? There are housing and individuals that reside within those areas, okay? So you have 4 different things you need to highlight. The Derby itself, the Oaks, the Turby, Turby, and Dawn at the Downs. The Derby, the Oaks, the Turby, and Dawn at the Downs. Those 4 opportunities allow for you to be connected from May 3rd through May 4th to have a great presence of participation. Sometimes just being around that environment could go a long way for you and the children, okay? There are, on average, about 150,000 spectators at Churchill Downs, okay? You need to be one of them. So wherein you may or may not have an opportunity to expend a lot of time, money, and or resources, there are some things that you can do. There's a Rally Shared Ride, and that's a bus, and it has 60 pickup locations, RALLY, Rally Shared Rides. And they go through various districts on the Thornbury Avenue route, the Bourbon Trail, and Bardstown. Bardstown, B-A-R like bar, D-S-T-O-W-N. That's a route. The other area that you may be able to have access to, depending upon security nowadays, is the paddock, the clubhouse, and infield. Those are the entry points to Churchill Downs. The paddock, clubhouse, and infield are the entry points to Churchill Downs. Sometimes you don't always have to get inside, but sometimes being close enough and still having visibility is good enough too. Okay, that's just something for you to take into consideration. There are several districts or communities, if you will, where, again, if you do not have the resources to actually participate in the day-to-day events or activities, but be in the vicinity, you can be in Nulu vicinity, Clifton, Germantown, or Butchertown. Again, Nulu, Clifton, Germantown, or Butcherstown, Paristown, or Highlands. If you could be anywhere in those vicinities, you'll have the wonderful opportunity to interact, to engage, and to witness some of the activities for the Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby itself is not located in Louisville as we know it. It's in an area they call Wyandotte. Okay, Stitzel and Weller is the district or the area. It is surrounded by a lot of bourbon distilleries, not far from the airport and the fairgrounds proximity. But if you have access to those areas, there are some places I do want you to try to check out. Obviously, we mentioned some of them in part, the museum, but it's over here and it's called Museum Row. Not far from that is the Whiskey Row. Then you have the Prohibition Tour, Louisville's Breweries, Mad Bar, Buck's Restaurant, and then there's a great food tour. And let me tell you, if you've never been to Louisville, there are several food items that you definitely want to be able to try to say that you experienced Louisville. I've already given you restaurants owned and operated by Blacks and or women, but I want to be able to share these spots with you too. This has been a staple of Louisville since about 1926. It's the Brown Hotel, and they call it the Hot Brown. And that is one of their meals there. Try it if you can. The other is the Benedict sandwich at the cafe. And then since 1938, the drink of choice, the staple of the Kentucky Derby is the mint julep, J-U-L-E-P, julep. Okay, some people pronounce it julep. Some people pronounce it julep. So others from the city just say, yo, give me the MJ, and it's not Michael Jordan, okay? So, but that's been around since 1938, and depending upon vernacular and what part of the country you're from, that's going to determine whether you pronounce the E as silent or as a hard vowel, etc., etc. Then I want you to consider the bear cheese while you're there and pulled pork. Now, if you're a Southerner or from Texas, you're going to think you have the best pulled pork. I do not eat pork. Okay, no disrespect. I do not eat pork. But for those who do, they say it is the best. They say Kentucky's is the best. Okay. And then they have what they call sweet shugum. Sweet shugum. Okay. It's S-U-R-G-H-U-M. S-U-R-G-H-U-M. It is delicious. I tried it. It is indeed very, very sweet. I think it's something that you definitely want to try while you're here. Try that, enjoy that. And if you are not able to get close enough to see some of the celebrities that attend this event, if you can get to Wagner Pharmacy, try. Here's your secret. Wagner Pharmacy is a staple for celebrities to visit during these 3 or 4 days. It is a diner. Don't be fooled by its appearance. Go there, stop. You will definitely see quote unquote celebrities if that's what you are looking for. But if you just want your children to have an opportunity to enjoy an event associated with the Kentucky Derby. You therefore bear also the responsibility of ensuring unto yourself and that of your children and your legacy that you do your part too. We cannot simply state or continue to state that it's about disparity and discrimination. We spend our money the way we want to the Black community. It is a $300 billion annual spending in the last 2 or 3 years alone. Okay? Spend the money wisely. Let them be a part of that experience. Allow them to enjoy it. If you can still get access to any hotels or it's a group of you, there are still availabilities at the home. You have homes that you could still rent on A and B and VRBO, but also in the Highlands District, people still have some of their homesteads up for rent. But then you have the Homewood Suites, Staybridge, and True by Hilton that as of today, believe it or not, still have availability. True by Hilton, Staybridge, and Homewood Suites. I have not received a penny or dime for any of the information I've given you. I'm doing this as part of Seltzer Sports, Filled to Rim, and in an effort to be able to bring some information to you. Tickets still are available on Ticketmaster if you can, or Vivid Seats or StubHub. But if you can't do anything, enjoy the Kentucky Derby Festival. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Filled to Rim, brought to you by Seltzer Sports. This is Lisa Hampton. Enjoy. Follow me on Twitter, Lisa Hampton _. Thank you. Have a safe and blessed weekend.